Ladies and gentlemen, your next presenter, Daniella Pavlic.
Good evening. Thank you for coming. So today I'm going to tell you a story. Once upon a time, in a faraway place, not too far from here, up in the mountains, there was this Mayan woman who wove this most beautiful robe. The colors were blue, yellow, and black. Blue, I'm not sure what it stands for. However, yellow represents the people of the corn. And black. Black was destruction, deforestation, evil intention. Now, this woman lived in a place called Ishil, and not far from her place, there was a plantation, a banana plantation. And within that plantation, a small corn stalk had just grown its tassels. The corn stalk was considered a weed. Because it was among all of these other bananas, it was a weed, and that rope was tied around its stalk to mark it for extermination. This tassel had a sense of self-awareness, and when it looked up, it saw these flies. These flies were roaring over above, is thundering and making his sight hazy. It became so hazy that he rocked back and forth. And as he was rocking, he felt his conscience leave him. When all of a sudden, there was a great big boom. It was silent. The air was silent. Everything was silent. The cornstalk slowly came back into consciousness. And when he looked in front of him, he was shocked. There was his friend, punctured, and with a yellow substance oozing out of him. This was a good friend. He slowly turned to the left, and what he saw there was his elder. An elder who had cultivated him, who had shared his water with him when no one was watching. He didn't dare, but he did. He looked to his right. And what he saw on his right was unbearable. It was the child of the woman who had also tended to him, who had patted down the corn. He looked at himself, and within himself, he felt that same substance. However, he hadn't been punctured. He was still in one piece. With that said, he knew he had to move. He knew he had to move far out of the landscape. So he started to walk. He started to walk and walk and walk. He walked up the hills. He walked so high that he just had to keep walking. One thing I did not mention, that this hill, this plantation, was on the landscape of the Mayan temples. So naturally it had steps built into it, and he continued walking. As he walked, he slowly did look back. And when he looked back, all he could see behind him was black. The forest. It had turned black. It was charred. Destruction. He continued to walk and walk. And as he neared the summit of the mountain, he looked over the edge. And what he saw surprised him. He saw before him his own shadow cast into the landscape. Not only was there his shadow, but there was also the flies, as well as the burned landscape. This was complicated. This was not easy to understand what had happened. As he reflected on this moment, he tried to put together his own experiences as well as his community's experience to make sense of what had just happened. Myself as an artist, I do the same thing. I pull from my own experiences as well as the experiences of others. And I try to make sense of what it is that happened in this atrocity. I use the color wheel as a way of visualizing these realities. In this story, I have talked about yellow and blue. However, there are many more realities within this story. There's red and green and purple. With this said, there's much more. As I mentioned before, this was a Mayan woman. And women tell their stories through these textiles. The yellow is the people of the corn. The yellow now lives within our own community. The community of Huahuatenango lives among us here in Champaign-Urbana. And as a researcher, I not only try to understand these narratives, but I try to understand the methodologies of horror as well. I try to understand what makes up this evil, this hatred, and what leads one community to try to annihilate another community. Within that, I look at a lot of research. I look at this document here, Operation Sophia. And within this document, I have found this form of mapping to exterminate others. This form of mapping was done by the General Efrain Rios Montt. And with this knowledge, I create these installations, an experiential installation that allows for people to feel themselves within this space. There's smell, there's a lot of sensorial things happening, and in addition, they have a sense of the material. Now, this work is going to be on display April 1st at the Crayon Art Museum, and you can have the chance to experience that yourself. And in addition, there will be my peers' work as well. And that is it. Thank you.